Thanks very much. Good luck with the launch on the 1st of Feb. Now it's time to hear again from Jay Caron, CEO of the National Golf Course Owners Association in the USA. If you were here yesterday, Jay, you kind of touched upon third-party tee times, didn't you? But I think now it's time to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it. And the question being posed is the tail wagging the dog? Enjoy.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. All right, here we go. I'm going to try to get us back on track on timing. We're a little behind. It's kind of like the airlines. When the first airline is late, usually the rest are having trouble staying on task, but I'll do my best. Okay, so let's get started. And I'm giving you lessons learned from the U.S. golf market because, as was said yesterday, the winds tend to blow east on what's happening, and I think this especially because the market in the U.K. doesn't seem to have developed in the way quite yet like it has in the United States with regards to golf course owners and operators using third parties and online tee time systems. So I'm here to share what we've learned in the US and what's happening. So we call them online tee time agencies, OTTAs. In the lodging business, they're called online travel agencies. We call them OTTAs. And so the presentation here today is going to focus on the business model of these companies, guidelines that we have established at the organization for fair play and good play, as well. I'll take some questions if there are time. So, a little bit of history in our industry. The online tee time space has been around really since the internet, but it was very fragmented in our industry until really the recession. But all along the way, our organization has always promoted proper practices through our education. Make sure you control your data. Have the customer database shared with you. Control your pricing. A lot of strategic things that we've said all along. I guess we didn't realize how important they were going to be in the long term, but we've educated all along the way. The companies that have developed in our space have different kinds of compensation models. And it's the barter method, which I'll focus on in a moment, that has really changed the landscape of this marketplace in the U.S. So during the recession and after the recession, one particular company kind of took lead, and there were a lot of consolidations, and it was GolfNow, which is owned by NBC Universal, which is owned by Comcast, one of the juggernaut corporations in America. So to see that kind of influence and resources available in the golf market was pretty new. If you think about the golf industry, most of the large companies are native to golf. Titleist, Acushnet, Callaway, all these brands, and all of a sudden GolfNow, which was a native company in golf, is owned by Wall Street. And that's not too many Wall Street investments in golf, but this was a major investment in golf, and it coincided with the recession, which is when, as I mentioned yesterday, a lot of owners and operators were feeling like they were against the ropes. And so here was kind of a knight in shining armor to possibly help, but we'll go into kind of what happened in many cases. So the rise of GolfNow really happened over the last 10 years, and a fairly formidable competitor is coming on the scene in the form of EasyLinks and the PGA Tour. PGA Tour has an equity stake in EasyLinks, which was kind of a number 2 competitor, still is a number 2 competitor. I don't have all the numbers for you, but I'm guessing around 6,000 courses at GolfNow and a couple of thousand at EasyLinks, but they've got the marketing muscle now of the PGA Tour. And this is all very incestuous in the U.S. because the PGA Tour has a relationship with the Golf Channel, which owns GolfNow, and so there's a media relationship there. So talk about dancing, having these companies that have conflicts, but they have to work together. So all of this sometimes creates this numbing effect, like nobody wants to make any hard moves because it might impact one of their partners or allies and so forth. So in the midst of all this, the owners and operators are signing deals with GolfNow to help them with their business, and other companies as well. So more about the history. So a few years back, the PGA of America, which is an allied organization of ours, we work very closely with them on various issues, but there was a moment in time when their board of directors, which is primarily made up of private club professionals, not public golf courses, and GolfNow is in the public space mostly with their tee times. So a lot of private club general managers and PGA pros on the PGA board decided that we're going to partner with GolfNow to become our kind of chosen tee time provider to promote golf. And it was at this board meeting or the annual meeting, I should say, of the PGA of America a few years back, where one of our members kind of said, hold on, put the brakes on this, please. Do you realize what you're getting into? Do you realize the disruption this is causing in the industry? And they quickly retracted once they learned the ins and outs of third-party tee time marketing, because the club industry doesn't play in this space. So it took a pretty, and that created waves in the industry, like, wait a minute, maybe all of this we need to take a strong look at. So then after that, the NGCOA kind of went into this 18-month quiet period of studying this issue. What are we going to do about this? Right? What are we going to do? Are we going to launch our own tee time company? Or are we going to endorse one? Or what's our role here? And after 18 months, they essentially, the organization that I took over about a year ago or so, published what we called our guidelines. These are the standards that we feel are the best practices in the industry, and we're going to try to get these companies to sign agreements to agree to adhere to the standards. Recognizing that some of the standards that we were advocating, they could not actually comport with yet because maybe their technology wouldn't allow them to. So it was more of an aspirational thing than it was here what the systems today can do and what we're telling you you should comport to. But that led to some disappointment because I think there was hope that, hey, we're going to launch the next tee time system and it's going to compete, it's going to be owned by the owners. And I think we quickly realized that you need millions of dollars every year in marketing to even get on the radar screen for the consumers themselves, right? And as an association, we're a nonprofit organization. I think we decided to be, we would rather work on the business than be in the business, if you will. So the PGA of America quickly endorsed our guidelines about a year and a half ago, and then that led to the formation of this new organization called the Golf USA Tee Time Coalition. The PGA of America and the NGCOA are the only two members of this coalition, and it's essentially a watchdog agency that is looking at what these tee time companies are doing in the marketplace. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. So a little bit of additional context about this space. So to put it in context, about 15% of golf in the U.S. is booked online. So when we're talking about this issue, it is impactful, but it's not our entire inventory, all right? And I learned that firsthand when I went to a golf course north of Detroit, Michigan a few months ago, and I sat down with a professional and the owners and so forth. I'm looking at their business, just shadowing. I was learning about their business. And I looked at the numbers of reservations booked through different channels, and I saw what came through Golf Now. And while it was something like 176 reservations over the past few months, or I remember how long the period, it wasn't enormous. And it made me look at all the other channels are getting reservations from. I thought, okay, it's just one of many channels. It's okay, let's calm down a little bit. But we focus on this issue because the fear is if that 15% goes to 50% or higher, then it just multiplies these problems and these issues. So we do have to pay attention now before it gets enormous. Now, I will say, as more context, I do not despise online travel tee time agencies. I want to get that clear. It's like Jay Karen does not hate these companies at all. The fact is, this is a marketplace, right? And they represent the tug of war that happens in the marketplace, supply and demand, right? Now, the interesting thing here is, though, that they seem to favor the demand side, the golfer, when you look at the pricing, the policies, and so forth. So in the balance of do these companies serve the golf course owner or do they serve the golfer? They'll say both, but when it comes down to it, their money comes from the golfer, right? So they're going to favor that as their primary customer. And you also have to remember that these companies don't have the variable costs that you do as golf course operators, right? So they have your inventory, but they don't have your costs. So in their DNA, there's not the same respect for price integrity because every round of golf costs a certain amount of money to you, whether you divide your fixed costs over those number of rounds to get an idea or the actual variable costs that it has for each person that comes through your doors. They don't have that. Yes, they have their costs of people that they have to employ and systems and so forth, no question about it. But that's a fundamental difference. When you turn over your inventory to someone who doesn't have your costs, they can take liberties with that and they won't necessarily always be in alignment with you on a pricing strategy. Also, what we believe is happening out there is that once an owner-operator signs a deal with a major OTTA, if they're not paying attention closely, there could seriously be diminishing returns from that partnership. If you're monitoring it closely and you're using the tool to your best advantage, the net could be positive. But if you're asleep at the wheel, the net could be negative. There are stories about double bookings, at the same time, and the course having to deal with two parties showing up for the same time. The third party doesn't have to, the tee time company doesn't have to worry about it because they're right there at the counter. You have to worry about it, right? As well as pricing issues. And I'll display some of these things where pricing that you might have agreed on in your agreement is displayed differently. And if you're not paying attention, then that will hurt you. So, and I'll get into some of those tactics in a moment. And also a little bit of context for all of this is the trouble in establishing what the value is. When you're paying for something as a business owner, you generally try to make a return on investment calculation, right? It's going to cost me X. This might bring in some revenue. It's a worthy value for me. The problem with the barter method of compensation, where you give a tee time and they collect the revenue, and you generally don't know what their revenue is over the course of a year, and you're getting all of these services in trade, it's hard to make a value judgment. Was it worth it? How much did they get? How much did I give up? And because it's so opaque, everybody just focuses on the next thing. Let me worry about the golfer that's at my counter right now. How are the accounts receivables on the tournaments? And all these things, and you just kind of... So it's our job as an association to pay attention to these things. It's my job to bring clarity to these things so that owners and operators can make more informed decisions that benefit their businesses. I hate to say it like this, but my job is not to make the third party successful. Now, I have said that if these third party companies are doing the right thing, then I will be the first to go on stage and celebrate their success. If their success is the definition of our success and not at the expense of the golf course, then I think it's a fantastic thing. But we have to monitor it very closely. And I am picking on Golf Now a bit. I know we have a couple gentlemen here from Golf Now, but I am picking on Golf Now a bit because they are the market leaders. If you put yourself out there as the market leader, you're the 800-pound gorilla. You got to expect to receive the praise and criticism that comes with being the market leader. And so because there are only really 2 or 3 companies that people in the United States have even heard of in this space, and Golf Now is the out front leader, there are more anecdotes, there are more stories, there's more discussion about Golf Now than anybody else. But just know that these principles apply to any company that may be in the space or may come into the space. So Golf Now in the United States is definitely the market leader, followed by teeoff.com, followed by Golf 18 Network. So I think there's a serious trailing off of numbers of participation once we get to this level. But also Golf Now in particular has relationships with, well, first of all, they might own the company, or they have relationships with other what's called forward-facing distributors, where your inventory is on Golf Now, and then they strike a deal with other companies to keep pushing that inventory out. And in some cases, they're only pushing the barter tee times out, not the rest of your tee times, like lastminute.golfer.com, which they own. Or GolfBIC is an app that is allowing you to put in the lowest price that you're willing to pay for a round of golf somewhere, and basically an auction app that's about bringing price down as much as possible, obviously, is what is happening there. And again, pushing the bartered rounds in that direction. And I believe here in the UK, teeofftimes.co.uk, and Military Tee Times as well is another site. So lots of forward-facing sites that a Golf Now might deal with. No different than like Booking.com or Expedia. They push that inventory out to thousands of sites, right? You just need to know that when you're getting in a relationship with these third parties, that they have these forward relationships that you can't control very well. And the new kid on the scene coming this spring in the US is golfbook.com, and it's in a major media partnership with CBS Sports, obviously, which has been a big brand in golf media in the United States for a long, long time. So the way I see this, competition is good. Yes, another company in the space might change some practices because they're all vying for the golf course owner to give them inventory. So, we hear GolfBIC is going to be commission only, no bartering, fine. At the end of the day, all of these companies are still trying to vie for the loyalty of your customer, right? And you have to decide, are you willing to allow them into the space to have some loyalty from your customer, right? So the Golf USA Tee Time Coalition was created. We have a full-time managing director in our office in Charleston. There are 3 things this coalition is doing, some of which you'll see the evidence of that when I go through my presentation here. It's part of the dialogue in this coalition. Education, making sure that owners and operators know what to do when they write these contracts with or sign these contracts. What are the best practices out there? So bringing education to the forefront. Being the ombudsman, you have a problem, a grievance, and you're not getting any help, call our office. And that way we learn about the pains and difficulties that are happening in the marketplace when we get those phone calls. Before this office, you had to rely on your third party to solve the problem. And sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't. So we have an office now. And then the standards advocate, which I'll go to in a moment. So the guidelines themselves, these are the elements of the Tee Time guidelines. And I'm going to go through them. Basically, the meat of the presentation are going through these standards. So the open marketplace. Essentially what this means is that your inventory, you should be able to control where your tee times show up. You're in control as the owner-operator, right? So what we run into with problems is when your online distributor is also your technology company, and they might restrict where your inventory shows up. And that is not good for you, right? It's not, and those decisions and where they show up are oftentimes based on deals that they have with these companies and whether or not they're going to pay a high enough fee to get access to the inventory and so forth. And unless there is a groundswell of demand from the golf course owners, say, we want our inventory over here, the control lies with the online tee time company that also owns the technology that you're using to house your tee times. So things to look out for is, like I said, when they are coupled together, and also when your tee times show up on sites that you don't approve of. Right? You need to be able to go to your online tee time, the relationship that you have. You see your tee time over here, and some site that you don't believe in. It does not mix with your branding philosophy. Let's say it's on a discount site, golfforless.com or whatever the next site is going to be, and you're not a discounting kind of golf course. You need to be able to tell your OTTA partner, turn it off. Take me off of that site, okay? So just know that you should be in control of where your inventory shows up or does not show up. And that's the concept of this, and it needs to be worked into your contract. The language needs to say such. Also, display integrity. This is where whatever shows up online through your marketing partnership is accurate and displays what you want it to display, because we find that sometimes it doesn't happen that way. So, for example, let me give you an example of a bait and switch tactic and I'll show you a screenshot of this later. When if I Google the name of your course and all of a sudden I see Tee Time Company X says book at this golf course up to 80% off. Book now, and you hit that button, and you're not offering any discounts. It's like, wait a second, that doesn't jibe. You're promoting my course at 80% off, and I don't offer 80% off. But sometimes you get caught up in these mass marketing systems of these companies, and they do that for all their clients, and you have to go to them and say, no, I'm not. That's not me. So they default you into these pricing messages, these promotions, or in some cases, if you were on a third party and then you left them a year later, let's say, but you still find that there's a listing for your course on their site, right? And the search engines show still, hey, book at XYZ golf course, 80% off, and you go and you click on it and it goes to their site, and you're no longer there, and it says, oh, no inventory found. But you know what? We've got these other great golf courses for you. So they're still using your brand, even though you don't have a partnership, to market other golf courses. And you have to understand, if this is a clever scheme because their revenue comes from booking rounds of golf. So they'll do everything they can to book those rounds of golf, especially the bartered rounds, the ones where they get all the revenue for. So you have to be careful and watch for these things very carefully. Okay, price integrity, similar to display integrity, is that the prices actually match and that you are in full control of what's called maximum allowable discounts. So this MOD, this is when you're in a barter relationship and you've given them the ability to sell those bartered rounds. And Golf now sells them as hot deals, and I don't know what they're called on other sites, but essentially where they get to keep all the revenue. A number of golf companies in the U.S. have successfully negotiated a maximum allowable discount, meaning that the price of that bartered round cannot go below X. And that X might be a formula, it might be a number, it might be no less than 50% off the price of the tee time before and after the hot deal. Okay? That way you have at least some confidence that if you turn your attention away, that you're maintaining some price integrity out there in the marketplace. Because if you're a 40-pound golf course, do you really want golf to be sold for 10 pounds? And I'll show some examples of what that looks like on a screen and how it just doesn't make much sense. And we have found through the ombudsman service that we provide that oftentimes, I shouldn't say often, but it happens where you might have a maximum allowable discount kind of agreement and it's violated. It's a system error, sorry. Right? That's what I mean. You have to take a close look and watch the inventory and watch what's happening and being sold. Price. You don't want the OTTA to be able to advertise that we have the low price guarantee, not booking direct. In fact, in the hotel industry, we have to learn from the hotel industry because they're 15 years ahead of us on this stuff. But what's happening in the hotel industry is that they went on to all the OTAs 10, 15 years ago, reluctantly. All their inventory got there, and they had what's called price parity. That if you're booking, hello Marriott, if you're booking $175 a night for this particular night, so are we. It's the same on both places, right? And so the hotels lost the ability to say, if you book direct with me, we're going to give you the best price, because the contracts have what's called rate parity. Well, over the last year or two, the hotels have been renegotiating their contracts and have been negotiating such that said, you know what, no, they're corporate, this is our inventory. If we want to sell it for $5 less on our site, we should be able to do that. And they're doing that. And they're actually starting to promote more book direct with us. Bypass the OTAs, book direct with us. Here are the incentives to book direct with Marriott, Hilton, or whatever. So it's evolving in the hotel industry. And we'll see what happens in the golf industry, but we at least like to shine the light of day on what's happening in other industries so we can learn from that. So how you're compensating your third party, your OTTA. There are many options. There is, let me just pay you an annual fee, and there's no bartering. And Golf Now and others are offering more options than just bartering, but it might be $25,000 a year. You have to make the call if it's worth it. For the technology that they provide, the T-sheet software, the website hosting software, all of that, you have to make a judgment on, is it worth the price to pay? Is it worth a commission? Is it barter? A lot of golf courses like the barter method because there's no cash involved, right? And I understand that. As a small business, it's a cash business. So one thing to look out for on these relationships that I want to specify here is sharing the data, the customer data, as well as the sales data. Maybe I'll focus on the sales data here. We'll talk about the customer data in a minute. But so let's say your third-party partner sells 1,000 rounds next year. You should be able to work into your contract. Well, first of all, tell me how many rounds you sold. Give me a report. What did you sell it for? And when I press these companies for that, they say, no, we're not obligated to give that information. You think, wait a second. Why? Why would you not share this? If you're so good for them, wouldn't you share this? Wouldn't you say, hey, we sold 1,000 rounds for you at this price? The dirty little secret is that it is the discounted price. And so it puts emphasis on, yeah, we sold 1,000 rounds, but we sold it for $18 a round, and I know your average daily round is about $28. Sorry. And that also allows you to calculate their revenue. They got $18,000 a year from you. Right? And what they say to me is, once the barter deal is in place, that is our inventory. It's not yours anymore. It's ours. So whatever we get on a revenue standpoint is our corporation's revenue. You don't have access to our revenue data. So it's like, oh, okay, I understand that from the corporate legalese, attorney, whatever, it doesn't matter, but as a golf course owner, I certainly want to know what's happening here. So I would demand it of your partner, if you get into a relationship, give me your sales data. How many did you sell? What did they sell for? Marketing. Now this one isn't. We're seeing the third parties get more and more into doing your marketing for you. You hire them to do your search engine optimization, to do your email marketing, to be your marketing agent for your business alone outside of their platform. The cost for that is oftentimes another bartered tea time, right? And things that you need to look out for in the search engines is how is your name being used? Is it being used to promote your competition? Because the search engine game can be a nasty one, all right? We talked about bait and switch tactics a moment ago. But if you decide that you are no longer going to be with a distributor, demand that your listing be actually removed. In some cases, you might not be able to. If it is a site like golfadvisor.com, or in the case of TripAdvisor, if you're a hotel and you don't like TripAdvisor, they won't remove you because they're providing an information service to the public about is your place good or not, right? I think GolfAdvisor is going to will use the same argument of, no, this is a place where people write reviews of golf courses. That's the service that we're providing. Sorry. But if it's a tea time booking service and you're not on it anymore, you should make sure that you get off of the site. So I'm going to show some examples of marketing in just a moment that you need to be aware of. So payment, if you are in a cash payment or a commission relationship with your agent, you got to make sure that you have good payment terms, that you're getting paid as quickly as possible, obviously. Ideally with less than 30 days is what we're talking about. And also, if they're taking credit cards on behalf of your business, you need to make sure that they're PCI compliant. Is that something that's made its way over here into the UK, PCI compliance? Okay, so essentially that there are safety standards in place for the credit card processing that protects the data of the person whose card you're getting, right? Because if there is a violation or money is stolen or identity theft, oftentimes they'll go to the merchant to collect damages that you'll be blamed for it. So be very careful and mindful of payment obligations. If they promise a mobile site, hey, your golf course is going to show up on our website and we have a great mobile site. Well, I encourage you to take a look at it before you sign a deal. Because if the mobile site is terrible and is not user-friendly, you have to think, do I want to be on this site? Do I want to associate my brand with this experience? Most companies are getting much better at creating what's called responsive websites. Not mobile sites, but responsive websites, essentially, which is their main site that gets compressed down based on the screen size that someone's looking at. So these problems have gone mostly by the wayside, but you need to make sure that you have to remember, you are giving them marketing control over your brand. And so whatever that user experience is, you need to be happy with. If it's not, then don't participate. And especially at the mobile experience, because Google says, they all say that the use of mobile devices and booking everything in the world is going up exponentially. So it gets pretty critical here. So yield management is essentially being able to adjust the pricing of your golf based on whatever rules you have. Demand is up, pricing go up, and so forth. And they're getting pretty sophisticated. These companies, these third parties are getting more and more sophisticated with tools to allow you to set rules. So you can actually walk away from the computer, set certain pricing rules that if your website gets a certain number of visits, let's say the traffic is going up, that maybe the price goes up. Right? I mean, that's really what yield management is pricing according to demand and getting the most out of each round that you can get from a pricing standpoint. So, but the most basic obligation they have to you is to make sure you can log in at any moment and change the prices as you see fit. Right? Easy access to your pricing is the most important thing here. And the customer data. The bottom line here is that this is where the fight for the customer happens, is when someone goes to golftomorrow.com and they sign up and they book a round of golf at your facility. They're usually having to give their data to that third party. I'm Jay Karen, here's my email address, here's my postal code, et cetera, et cetera. They get my information. Well, there's been a history where early in the history of online tee time providers, these companies gave that data to the golf courses. Hey, Jay Karen's coming to your course. Here's his email address. Here is his postal code. Here's his information. And all of a sudden, there was a day and time when that stopped. And GolfNow specifically said, no, you know what? That's our data. They booked on our site. And in fact, the president of my board of directors, who was a GolfNow customer, he told me, remember looking at his monthly new customer data, and here is the email addresses. Here's the spreadsheet of all the email addresses, and all of a sudden there was a day and time when the email field in that spreadsheet said some gobbledygook didn't make any sense. Like, wait, these aren't real email addresses. What's going on here? It was spitting out some raw data. And he called and he said, oh, yeah, if you'd like the email addresses, it'll cost you one more bartered round. Like, wait a second. What's going on here? And so now, since then, I believe that systems are changing, and because of the work that we're doing, we find, like GolfNow in particular, I think they've evolved to a place where when someone signs up, you can opt in to giving your email address to the golf course when you book that time. So there's an opt-in versus an automatic sharing, right? So it's evolving, but at the end of the day, this is really where the rubber hits the road. Is that customer data the third parties, or is it yours, or is it both, right? And I think golf courses, when they're giving their inventory, I think they feel like, you know what, this should be our customer data. But the default line also happens to be, well, when they show up to your golf course, get the data. We're bringing them to your front door, so just get the data. And I will say, golf course owners in the U.S. are notoriously terrible, absolutely terrible at getting customer data. And so that they do need to fix that. They do need to use the third-party partnerships to get better information on their customers and then nurture those relationships. I play probably 50 rounds of golf a year. 25 of them are around the country, and never do they ask me for my email address. I thought, what a missed opportunity, right? So anyway, but from a data standpoint, you need to get what is yours and what's important to you, and that's the customer data. The contract themselves, make sure that the termination language is clear. Oftentimes, it'll say something like, if you do not renew this relationship 60 days out from the termination date, it automatically renews for another year. So the termination language and these kinds of things are written, the default language is not often to benefit you, it's to benefit them, because the contract that's put in front of you is their contract. You're not presenting them with the contract, they're presenting you with their contract. So you have to be very careful on termination language, that maximum allowable discount, and so forth. All the things that we talked about needs to be in black and white. If it's not in black and white, liberties may be taken. So finally, the last few slides here, food for thought and caveats. Now, I apologize, you really can't see this screen very well. I took this really quickly on a cold day last year, and this is what the Chicago email marketing campaign looked like for GolfNow. And it was like April, and usually April in Chicago is terrible weather. And there was a moment where there was good weather coming this weekend, like really good weather. If you're a golf course owner and there's really good weather coming in the middle of the winter, and you're opening the tee sheet, are you inclined to keep your prices strong or to discount heavy? Strong. Demand's going to be high. They're going to be coming out in dozens, right? Well, this is an example of the disconnect where you might see with a third party. The third party is saying, we got to sell these tee times. Let's get it out there, sell it for less. Great weather's coming to Chicago. You can't read this, but it's showing the forecast. Great weather's coming. Buy cheap golf. You see, that's the disconnect that we have to fix in the industry. This is an example of when I went to buy theater tickets. This is not a golf industry issue, but this is happening in the golf industry. Where I go to pay for the tickets at checkout, they're offering me choices. Do I want digital delivery, and I can print it at home for free, or pay $2.50 for the tickets to be at will call? I got to pay $2.50 to go walk up to a window to get my ticket? What's going on here? And there are now user fees entering into the space. Well, GolfNow has it, the booking fee, but some of the other competitors in the space are starting to say, we're not going to have a booking fee. That $2.50 booking fee for the convenience of using GolfNow to book your round of golf. That is the other percentage of their income comes from the booking fees. 70% of their income, though, comes from the bartered rounds. Probably the other 30%, or most of it, is from user fees. And you have to think, do I want my golf course associated with a booking fee that I'm not getting? It's up to you. I'm not telling you what to do. You just need to know what's happening. Also, this is that golf course in Detroit that I mentioned. Now, they don't have pricing. This is their website. This is not golfnow.com. This was at Sycamore Hills. I went on their site, and I saw on their own website, they have the hot deals on their own website. And I said, Tom, what are you doing? You're actually encouraging the sale of bartered rounds on your site you're not getting the revenue for. He did not know this. He did not know that the bartered rounds were showing up on his own website. So he had to call his rep and say, take them down. Oh, okay, we will. And they did. But he didn't know that. Right? I had to point it out to him. He does not have to sell the bartered rounds. He's got to sell the ones that he gets the revenue for, right? But take a look at how that looks, though. I mean, obviously, he purposefully does not put the prices on here. I think that's a mistake. But basically, that's the one, the 904 Tee Time, he has 27 holes, so he has different formats you can buy, this course to that course, this course to that, this 9 to that 9, he has different formats. But if at 904, if this is on his website, why would you not choose the hot deal, is what I'm saying, on his own website if it's available. So this, I grabbed this screenshot this morning. Charwood Golf Club is the golf course that my board president owns in Columbia, South Carolina. So I Googled Charwood Golf Club, Columbia, South Carolina. Now, look here. Golf Now does such a good job on search engine optimization that not too many people are going to click the 7th thing down on Google results. But you see that what happens here, and by the way, he was on Golf Now, then got off of it, and has been off of it for a few years now. But look what shows up. Look carefully here. Charwood Country Club, book your next tee time and save up to 80%. The best tee times go fast, book now. So I sent that to him saying, is this a violation of one of our standards? And it's our job to bring this attention. So I'm going to wait to hear from, his name is Rock Lucas, I'm going to wait to hear from Rock to see what he has to say about this, because I know he's not going to be happy. This is an example of where we have to stay vigilant about what's happening in the marketplace. I already showed this to you about how the appearance of golf is now becoming a commodity, but to emphasize the fact that these companies, or Golf Now in particular, is really a discount site. This is the email, an example of an email I got months ago, demonstrating what they believe in as the lead marketing message of 80% off golf, and this was what it was just 2 days ago. They took the 80% off, but it's the very best prices in golf. I was on stage with a number of technology providers a few weeks ago in Florida at a big golf conference, big technology companies, and Golf Now was up there, and I'm friends with Will McIntosh and Jeff Foster, the guys that run Golf Now. But I said, are you a discounting company? No, we're not. I had to show him these screenshots to remind him, maybe you are, right? So let's be genuine about really what's happening in the marketplace. And it's my job, again, to shine the light of day on this. Last few slides. All right, so how many of you have heard of OpenTable.com? It is a global site now, right, for booking a meal at a restaurant. I took this screenshot this morning. This is what OpenTable looks like. You want to book a restaurant somewhere? Man, they have some amazing options, and they go right into the booking engine. Where do you want to go? Then you go to restaurant.com. What's the emphasis on restaurant.com? Discount deal, 50% off. Let's go back to OpenTable. Is there nary a mention about a discount? No, and this is the most popular site in the world for booking restaurants. But look at this. All right, let's look in the golf industry. teeoff.com, number 2 competitor right now. You see any mention of a discount? Nope. Go to Golf Now, what do you see? Play golf for less. Now, there's a place for this. I don't want to castigate this. There's a place, because as a consumer, there are millions of consumers that do want the best value. I'm not going to offer an indictment against that. But my job is to represent the owners and operators and their interests. And I'm here to say the best thing for an owner-operator is to focus on just finding a good round of golf and value, not necessarily price. So, things to think about. Favor book direct marketing schemes. Book with us directly, especially after you get the customer. Also, think about the importance of, in the future, because who knows what's coming down the road here, if you want to see golf on bookable golf on TripAdvisor and Booking.com, you need to think about the relationship between your tee time software company and these non-native companies to golf, Booking.com and so forth. Because right now you can't book golf on those sites. What you want to have happen is that they have a connection to your software, not to your marketing partner, right? So if you want all of a sudden golf to be bookable here, that tee time is being pushed by your software company, not your marketing partner. That's ultimately what you want here. All right, and TripAdvisor has started doing this in the United States with the small B&Bs and hotels going directly to their software systems. But it requires great aggregation. They won't work with the golf industry unless there's one software provider that can bring, let's say, 1,000 courses, or in the UK, maybe 500 courses all together. They won't do it onesies, twosies. So it benefits you if there are some substantial software companies in the UK space with lots of tee times, because that's how the companies like TripAdvisor want to work. So, it is 12:45. Recommendations, last 2 slides. Follow us on ngcoa.org. There's an advocacy tab there. We're kind of putting updates on what's happening. This is an advocacy issue for us, so follow us there. I also recommend you go to teetimecoalition.org, where we have best practices there, we've got some resources, and here is where you lodge your complaint if you have a complaint. And here's where we're going to publish the report card this year on how all the companies in the tea time marketing space are doing against the standards that you just saw. So you can make some healthy decisions about your business. And here's how you contact me directly. Again, I put this up yesterday, but if you want to reach me, this is how you do it. I welcome you to dialogue with me on these issues. And Naga, I think I'm at 12:45, so I can take any questions or 5 minutes of questions, because I'm hopping on a train at not long after this, so this is your last chance. Any questions about the space or what I presented today? Did I give you just too damn much to think about? I'll repeat the, oh, we have a microphone, great. Okay, thanks, Jerry.
Thanks. Jay, you talked about obviously some of the challenges with particularly the barter times, and you also said you're not necessarily an advocate for the golf companies or the third-party distributors. But given some of the challenges, particularly around the barter times and the lack of transparency it brings to your members, why is it that the NGCOA have not come out and said, actually, we do not believe in having barter times. This is the position you should have. It creates transparency, and therefore we would advocate you use a supplier that does not operate with this system.
That's a really good question. Taking a harder line as an organization, a policy stance that we don't believe in bartering. And I think we did some qualitative research within our membership, and I think the tough thing about that, and this we may get there, but I think we haven't gotten there today because so many of our members prefer it. They do. And in America, the last thing that business owners want from organizations and bureaucracies is for folks to tell them how to do their business, right? And saying that, you know, you're making a bad decision if you do this. You should not do this. Doesn't ring well with a lot of people, but I think the opaque nature of this, we're not saying don't do business with this company, but saying we don't believe in this business model is certainly allowable, right? Also, there's a fear of litigation against the organization because let's just say in 2 years' time, GolfNow is the last company that's doing barter because GolfBIC isn't doing it. Let's say Tee-Off is not doing it anymore because they've migrated to a different model. If we were to say as an organization, first of all, don't do business with GolfNow, we'll be in litigation very, very quickly. If we say don't do business with anybody who's doing bartering as a business methodology, and they happen to be the only one doing bartering, certainly their lawyers are going to connect the dots and saying don't do business with this company. As a nonprofit organization in the U.S., there's certain laws that we have to follow to maintain our nonprofit status and to be in business, and restraint of trade is one of those laws that we have to be very cognizant of, right? So, but I hear what you're saying. We got to split that hair. We haven't gotten there yet. It hasn't been brought up to our, nobody's asked us to actually have a position statement on that, if you will. But I think it's right time that we do consider that. So thank you for that. Other questions? Colin?
If you own the golf course yourself, would you barter or not?
If I owned the golf course? Well, it's easy for me to say no. I wouldn't. I would only barter I would only possibly barter if I had the data on what everything sold for and how many. If I had complete transparency, I might choose it. I might. If I had the ability to control the maximum allowable discount, I might choose it. I might say it can't go below 25% of my rack rate. But if those conditions can't be met, then I would say no. So the conditions have to work totally in my favor. So I know it's a qualified answer, but this is not black and white. This is very gray territory. Any others? Yes, last question?
Yeah, just a question. You mentioned yield management. I just wonder what your thoughts are about its place in the golf industry. Because it's nowhere near where the hotel industry is, where you're going to hotel room on 3 days and be treated twice.
Yeah.
Is it going that way?
The better term for that really these days is dynamic pricing, right? And I think the golf industry has a really neat opportunity to do it because we've actually been doing dynamic pricing forever. How many of you charge more on the weekends than you do during the week? We've been doing it forever, but it's getting more granular is what the question is. Like, Will the 1102 tee time cost £5 more than the 1110? Or how do you make those judgments as to when price goes up and goes down? I think consumers in general are getting more accepting of knowing that if I'm sitting in an airline seat next to someone, they might have paid $300 less than I did. Hotel rooms as well. I think there's a general acceptance in the marketplace that dynamic pricing is a reality. The question is, when does it go to abuse? Like the airlines abuse it, right? And if you look and you try to book a flight, you pay, it's going to be $300. Oh, no. Now you choose your seat. Okay, let me go choose my seat. Oh, the only seats available left are between an extra $15 and $45 per seat, based on the legroom with its aisle, window, and it feels abusive. You're going to charge me $35 more to sit in the aisle because they know it's about demand, and it feels abusive. Golf has the ability to price demand or dynamic pricing based on weather. If the weather looks great, inch up the prices a little, right? So I think there's some really interesting opportunities there, but I'll be watchful for where it crosses the line of abuse. And it's an experiment right now. I think there's room for it, but we have to be cognizant of crossing that line where it's like, oh, this feels like a money grab more than it does dynamic pricing. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Give him a big round of applause. Jay, thank you so much. Thank you for the safe journey.